Next Level Pro Wrestling fans, it is that time of the year once again. Fayetteville Comic-Con returns to the Crown Coliseum on April 27th and 28th for the two-day extravaganza featuring several of your favorite Next Level Pro Wrestling superstars, from the Next Level Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Champion Jack the Ripper Tatum, along with the brand new Next Level Pro Wrestling Social Media Champion, The Show, C.J. Evans, along with some of your favorite Lucha Libre superstars, from De Leon X, Paradox, and the Alpha J. Wolf. Also, be sure to check out all the crazy costumes and all the exciting events that you will see this year at Comic-Con. It is a two-day event that is must-see, and you cannot miss it. Be there April 27th and 28th at the Crown Coliseum.
Hello, Next Level Pro Wrestling fans. This is Trey Morgan here with episode number 2 with Time to Talk with Trey Morgan. And this week, my guest I have is the Alpha J. Wolf. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Let's get into business here. So, you've been in the wrestling business here in North Carolina for a while. Let's get into how you got into the wrestling business.
Well, that's a story that goes back quite a few years, actually. Started 6 years ago, actually, almost. Ran into Hang Time, and I started training with him for the first couple of years or so. And not long after that, he actually was talking about starting up his own wrestling school, which came to be the 2-6 Wrestling Academy. And myself, alongside Trey's Genovese, we were actually the first two to come over and start studying here at the 2-6 Wrestling Academy. So the three of us were kind of like the pillars of 2-6 when it first started getting built up from the ground up. I mean, I remember back there where the building and the ring is now, when it was just an empty plot of grass, and now it's a whole training facility. We have 20, 30 students here training now. It's come a long way from all those years ago.
Absolutely. So, 6 years you got into the business. How did you come with J. Wolf?
Well, see, J. Wolf is kind of almost it's almost like a lifestyle. The way I've lived throughout my entire life, I've always been the underdog. I live life, everything I did, no matter what I did, no matter where I went, I was always the underdog. I was always the runt of the pack, if you will. And so when I came into wrestling, where I already knew, again, I was going to be the underdog, no matter what, I said, you know what, let me just go ahead and embrace it. Let me embody that. Let me be the runt of the pack. Let everyone doubt me. Let everyone think I can't do it, so that when I do it, I completely shock everybody. The only person it's not a shock to is myself. And I continue to bet on myself every time, no matter how much the odds are against me. That's what J. Wolf is. J. Wolf is the underdog that no matter what keeps going and keeps fighting.
And Jay, you say, as you say, quote, the runt of the litter, and obviously that doesn't fit because you're nowhere near the runt of the litter in the wrestling business. There are a lot of small wrestlers that I'm pretty sure you look up to guys like Rey Mysterio.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Who are some other wrestlers that you look up to and get inspiration from?
Honestly, a lot of guys, like one of the big ones you mentioned, Rey Mysterio. That's honestly part of where the inspiration for getting a mask came from, was from Rey Mysterio. Another one, Eddie Guerrero. Looked up to Eddie Guerrero for a long time. Thought he was incredible. More recent one actually was Finn Balor. Actually, he's another one of the smaller guys on the active roster in bigger companies. But no matter what he did, he just kept going. And now look at him. He's done it all.
Absolutely. He's been a world champion in the biggest company on the planet.
Yeah.
So, with you finding 2-6 Wrestling Academy, you've done a lot of things here. What do you plan on doing in the future here at 2-6?
Well, I've already
in
had
the near future, I should say.
As far as, like you said, I've already done a lot here at Next Level already. I had a run with the Next Level Pro Wrestling Social Media Championship. Had a brutal rivalry with Jack Tatum. We beat the heck out of each other in strap matches. We folded each other like pretzels in submission matches. All that over the Social Media Championship. And now Jack Tatum just so happens to be the heavyweight champion. So Who knows if we cross paths fighting over that? I've also started really dabbling a lot in lucha libre, which I have absolutely fallen in love with. In my recent battles with the Ultimo Soldado from Mexico, he is probably one of the best competitors I think I've ever stepped in the ring with to date, and easily my best matches of my career thus far, so I honestly will have no complaints whatsoever if we cross paths again and again and again, because every time we do, I learn just a little bit more, and it's always a great time.
So you just mentioned Jack Tatum, the brand new Next Level Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Champion. Let's talk about the divisions here at Next Level. Let's talk about the singles division. You have at the top Jack Tatum. You have Trey Havoc is also here. Hang Time is in the running and there as well. What do you think about the singles competition here at Next Level?
I mean, you said just those few names right there, and already there's just so much potential in just those three names that you mentioned. Jack Tatum, like I said, no introduction needed, Right. Despite how we might personally feel about each other, we may not necessarily like each other, but you can't deny the guy's got talent.
Absolutely.
Hang Time, no stranger there. The guy has literally taught me just about everything I know. And even though he's taught me everything I know it's not even 10% of what he knows. We've crossed paths one-on-one 5 times throughout my career thus far, and I'm only 1-4 against him. It just goes to show that he knows so much more than I'll ever know at this point right now. And some of the other names that you've mentioned, like, for example, one that I've really had my eye on recently, CJ Evans, and the new social media champion. He has come so far from the day I first met him. From where he was 2 years ago when I met him to now, totally different wrestler. So much talent and all that. And despite knowing him for that long and having shared just about every locker room with him, I have yet to have a proper one-on-one match with CJ Evans.
But now that he's the Next Level Pro Wrestling social media champion, you being a former social media champion, that sounds like it will be a very, very good clash between the two, since you say you've never had a one-on-one shot.
The two of us, we were actually, fun fact, during the rivalry between myself and Jack, we were initially slated to battle each other for the social media championship when I was champion, but circumstances between myself and Jack kind of inevitably pushed CJ to the sideline, and by the time he came back around to get his championship opportunity and become champion, obviously, I had long since lost the title, and so we never really got that fight, We never got that match.
So let's talk about the tag team division in Next Level. We have the Next Level Pro Wrestling Tag Team Champions, Team Pitbull.
I know them very well.
We have a newly formed tag team at our last show with De Leon X and Paradox.
I know.
In which you had a little part in them coming together. And also, it looks like that you have a new tag team partner, and a man that you mentioned from Mexico just a few minutes ago, El Ultimo Soldado, might be a new partner for you, maybe?
They always say sometimes your greatest rivals can be your greatest allies, Soldado and I may have clashed before, but it was always on respect, and I was always eager and ready to learn more from him. And we've already gone head-to-head twice, and I certainly have a score to settle with Afterlife with De Leon X and Paradox. I don't know, maybe De Leon X is still a bit salty that I'm 2-0 against him, so maybe that's it. I'm not sure.
And let's also talk about the women's division that we have here at Next Level Pro Wrestling. We have Cece Young. We have Serena Vale. We have Riley Rose and Audrey Allen, just to name a few of the names here at Next Level Pro Wrestling. What do you think about the women's division?
I'll say this. How many companies out there do you know that actually have a homegrown and built up women's division of their own?
Not very many.
Not very many, if any at all. Yeah, there's plenty of great female talent across the Carolinas that come in and wrestle for many different companies, but no company really and truly has their own women's division that they built from the ground up. And CC Young and Riley Rose in particular, I remember when they first walked through the doors at 2-6, almost a year, 2 years ago nearly, and they've more or less been the ones trying to build up the women's division around themselves. And then all of a sudden, because of the hard work that they've put in and what everyone's done to build up Next Level as a whole, now we're starting to attract the attention of the likes of a Serena Vale and Audrey Allen. And who knows, maybe more will come in. I'd love to see more come in and actually have a full women's division that we can show off and say, hey, this is what the women of Next Level can do.
Absolutely. So let's go back to the early days of the young Jay Wolf. Before you got into the wrestling business, when you were growing up, probably more than likely like myself, watching it on TV.
Oh yeah.
Who are the guys? Who were some of your favorites when you were coming up, and who were some of the ones that you disliked as you were coming up?
Well, when it came to guys that I liked as a little kid, there was no denying it. My all-time favorite has been and probably always will be The Undertaker. I mean, I fell in love with The Undertaker. I just could not get enough of it. Every time the gong sounded, I would lose my mind. I was happy as could be, you know. Other guys also, like, you know, again, I've always had a soft spot for those, you know, late 90s going into early 2000s wrestlers, the likes of, you know, like I mentioned, Undertaker, Cena, Guerrero, you know, stuff like that. And as far as wrestlers that I didn't like, I mean, like I said, most wrestlers, especially back in that day, there was always at least something that you could admire and respect about what they did, you know. So there was never really a wrestler that I just outright could not stand and hated for just everything about them, you know. But that's honestly kind of a tough one because, like, especially when you get into wrestling, you know, you really start to really respect and appreciate how much hard work it takes to even do this at all to begin with, let alone do it at that level. So even if you don't necessarily like someone, you know, like, for example, plenty of people don't like Logan Paul. Might not be the best person in the world, but let me tell you something. The dude put in the work, and he's a natural at it. So it's like, on some level, you have to respect that.
You're correct. You're right. So, coming up, watching wrestling, what made you want to get into the wrestling business? Because it's different. It's not everybody dreams about, oh, I'd like to go be a professional wrestler. I'd like to go do this. But how did you find a school? Like, how did you come about saying, okay, I made my decision. I want to be a wrestler. This is what I need to do. So how did you find that?
Well, I mean, for the longest time I was a fan coming up, I also always wanted to maybe one day do it. You know, like every fan has that thought of, man, what if I really did try to do that? You know, what if I did try wrestling at one point? And, you know, so I feel like everyone just about can relate to having that desire to want to do it.
Right.
But what ultimately was able to help me get my foot in the door was several years ago, you know, before I actually started, I had just come out of, you know, a career in the Coast Guard for a couple years, and I had finally come home after, you know, being away, and I go to my local gym, and one of the guys that I befriended at that gym who worked there also happened to be a professional wrestler. You know, it was kind of a, you know, almost a meeting of, you know, circumstance of luck, as it would be. And I mentioned how I was a fan of wrestling. He talked about how he was a wrestler, training at the time with Hang Time. And so he agreed to bring me along and introduce me to Hang Time. And that's kind of what got my foot in the door, if you will, to kick off what now became what I do now.
So with your size, you have the high-flying moves. You know how to go on the ground and tie people up in a pretzel, as you said earlier. What are some of the things that you love about being in the ring when you know right before you're across the ring from your opponent and you know that bell's about to sound and you're about to go one-on-one? What is that feeling like for you?
For me, it's like, especially that moment, like you mentioned, right as the bell rings. There's almost like this brief moment where time just stops and you just feel the energy of the crowd, especially when you're in front of a packed house, 200, 300, 400 plus people, all yelling and screaming and chanting, cheering your name, cheering your opponent's name. It's like there's that brief moment where you're just like, you want to soak it all in. If you could put that lightning in a bottle that's one of the best feelings in wrestling, you know. And then, of course, when that bell rings and it's time to go, again, if it's a hot crowd especially, you know, that energy just builds and builds and builds, and you feed off of that, you know. When those kids in the front row are cheering for you when you're down, and you do everything you can because you feel that energy, and then you use that energy to get up and fire back at your opponent, it's amazing. And then when the crowd feeds off of you fighting back, and it just builds and builds and builds, and it's almost unstoppable in a way, you know. It's incredible. It's a feeling that really can't be replicated.
So, Jay, here being in Next Level Pro Wrestling for the last couple of years, what plans and goals do you have in the future? Let's say the next 2 years, the next 5 years, and let's say even the next 10 years, if you're even not with Next Level Pro Wrestling and you moved up. What are your goals for Jay Wolf?
Well, as far as short term and long term, you could say I'm always looking to get to that next level. Pun intended, if you will. You know, but short-term wise, like I said, I would love to cross paths one-on-one with CJ Evans. I certainly wouldn't say no to a rematch with Jack Tatum, you know, and there's a whole lot more talent in that locker room that I've yet to have the chance to go one-on-one with, but I would love to lock horns with, like, guys like Johannes McCallus. That guy has really stepped up his game a lot. He's come a long way in a short period of time, and there's a lot of other young, hungry talent in there. JTJ, I mean, you know, the new faces like Paradox. I really would love to get my hands on Paradox. That dude can fly. He dropped me on my head, but granted, I'm not gonna lie, the dude can fly. He's freakishly strong. And then of course, tag team wise, if, you know, say Soldalo and I do go forward as a team, you know, I honestly wouldn't mind crossing paths with the Team Pitbull again. I'm certainly no stranger to them. Another young team, the Luau Express. I know Ace Palale is currently out with injury, but you know those two guys, they're just a big goofballs of energy, and I honestly love it, you know. And then of course the guys who decided to jump us from the back, as mentioned before, Afterlife. I've got some history with De Leon X. I was here when he first burst onto the scene, and I guess he's still salty about the fact that he just hasn't beaten me yet. But we can settle that score anytime.
So let's go to more personal topics here, Jay. What have you had that has made it difficult in your career in the wrestling business for you to overcome to become what you are today?
Well, as luck would have it, the midway point of my career right now, of the 6 years that I've been doing this, right about halfway between those 6 years was obviously the pandemic, which was certainly not kind to any of us. I mean, it obviously was so bad it shut the whole world down. It affected pro wrestling as a whole, and it affected a lot of people on a personal level, and 2021 is when it finally was able to get a hold of us, when I lost my dad to COVID-19 back in 2021. Ironically enough, in fact, I even have it tattooed on my arm right here. The day he passed away, October 6, 2021, is the exact day to the year I made my in-ring debut. It was on October 6th of 2018. And then October 6th, 2021 was the day I lost my dad. So that day holds a lot of bittersweet memories for me now, obviously. But that's part of the reason why I have this, you know. This compass tattoo, it was a Coast Guard's tattoo, you know. It's a mark that always says sailors find our way home. But when my dad passed away, I added his name and his dates around it, because throughout my entire life and even now, he's always been pointing me in the right direction, and even now. And
I personally can relate a little bit with you on that, because I also lost my father in 2021. And he was in the Navy, so I totally understand the tattoo and sailors always go north. Yeah. And both of those guys, I'm pretty sure they're up there. So how has that motivated you moving up and going further in your wrestling career? Because I'm pretty sure the memory of your father has to inspire you to want to keep on going, because that's what sailors did. They just kept on going.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, honestly, I mean, he didn't always get to come to a lot of shows because he was a single dad raising 2 kids. And even though I was grown and out of the house, he still had my younger brother who was autistic. And so he was taking care of him, running the household, running his business all at the same time. But every chance he did get, which wasn't there very many, but when he did, he always came out, supported me, was there at my shows, was there watching front row if he could, every time cheering me on. And I always would tell him, you know, one day you're going to be sitting front row on a place like Monday Night Raw, and the ring you're going to be looking into is going to be a ring that's being filmed to hundreds of thousands of people on Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown. And although he's not going to be sitting front row like I initially thought he would be, my plan is to still get to that stage, and he'll still be watching me from that stage. He just might not be watching me from the place that I envisioned he would be.
So, you've had many battles here in Next Level Pro Wrestling, like you said, with Ultimo Soldado, Jack Tatum, CJ Evans. Is there anybody that you're looking forward to facing? Do you want to see somebody in the ring sooner rather than later?
There is one, and I've had my eye on him for many years. Reason being, he's already, you could say, at that level that I've been trying to get to. And for me, it's a test to see, am I at that level now? How much farther do I have to go? Diego Hill. That man is one of the most athletically gifted human beings I have ever seen on the face of the planet. First time watching him, I was amazed by what he could do. And I told myself, man, if there's anyone I want to fight in a ring, if there's anyone I want to cross paths, that's the guy. And I've spent the last 4 years trying to build up, try to get myself there, because I would love to see nothing more than to have Diego Hill in a next level ring and to be the one standing across from him, to wrestle a guy as good as him. That would be a top goal for me in the near future, definitely.
So I have just 1 or 2 more questions here for you. To inspire the kids, like you were inspired when you were growing up, is there anything or any advice that you can give to somebody that's not in the business or watching the business now as they're growing up? Anything that you could think of that you would want to tell them to get into the business, that don't quit if you have a dream to keep on going?
For me, whether it's pro wrestling, you know, whether it's you want to be a professional athlete, you want to be a professional singer, musician, whatever it is, definitely don't let what anyone else say have any impact on what you do. Because from the beginning, I had people saying I was the weakest link. I had people saying I wouldn't make it past 6 months in this business. And now here I am, 6 years later, performing in front of packed out house after packed out house, having match of the night after match of the night, and people never even thought I would get there, let alone have held championship gold and be in the running for more potentially. You know, don't let what anyone else says behind your back determine what you do going forward. Just when they tell you you can't do it, just look them dead in the eye and just say, watch me do it.
We have, Next Level has a nice little territory going on, as we would call it. We have, as we did a show here in Fayetteville at 71st High School just a couple of months ago. Our last show was at Rayford National Guard Armory, in which at the last show we had another date for July the 13th that we're going to be back there. We have our show at Dunpal Fitness Center coming up in May as well. Mm-hmm. We also have St. Paul's that we run at on a regular basis. What do you think about us traveling and moving around and expanding our territory at Next Level?
I mean, for me, that's what old school wrestling was. It was one company owns this territory, and we just go in a box. We're constantly traveling, and we're always within driving distance of the bulk of our fans, and they can follow us from St. Paul's to Rayford to Fayetteville to Dunn, you know. And of course, don't forget Fayetteville Comic-Con coming up. That's actually our next event, you know, the 2-day event at the Comic-Con Crown Complex, which for me, that's one of my favorite events of the year.
April 27th and 28th, ladies and gentlemen.
That's by far one of my favorite events of the year. I mean, that's that's the time where we just let loose and we just go all out there, have fun, man. I remember the previous Comic-Con, I went out there with Thor's hammer and just started knocking people around with that until the social media champion at the time, Cody Fontanez, threw me out of the Battle Royal. But you know, that's where you have the real fun interactions with the fans. That's where it shows like that. That's where those really get to happen.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because that is coming up here. Is our next show is the Comic-Con. So you said you come out with Thor's hammer. Does other wrestlers come out dressed up as cosplay, or do you get the fans into it, or how do we do that?
Oh man, if I sat here and told you all the ways that I've already seen the way Comic-Con fans can interact with us and stuff that could happen. I remember probably one of the biggest first title matches for the social media championship at the time was when defending champion Sean Cruz took on our trainer Hang Time in a no disqualification Comic-Con Chaos match. And I kid you not, I cannot make this up, ladies and gentlemen. Throughout that match, Hang Time was tripped by a person wearing a giant fox costume by the tail. He was scared off the top rope and fell to the floor from Batman. He made out with Deadpool, got kicked in the shin by Hornswoggle, and then got pinned by Thor's hammer. I cannot make that up. And then to cap off that entire Comic-Con, that same show, the end of the night, half of our roster was out in the ring talking smack to the people. Lo and behold, who comes through the curtain to drop every single one of them on the back of their necks? Darth Vader force choke slamming our entire roster practically. And that's a moment you just can't make this stuff up. And I remember that clip on our old social media page. It went viral. I mean, I think it got a couple 100,000 views of it. That's just kind of fun stuff like that, man. That's what Comic-Con's all about, and I absolutely love it.
And that proves right there that anything can happen at Comic-Con.
Anything at all.
Anything, and in the wrestling business. You know, that's why we love it, because you never know, ladies and gentlemen, what's going to happen. Like, you show up to a show and expecting we're going to have a couple of matches here. And like you said, you got somebody getting pinned by Thor's hammer. You know, somebody getting clotheslined by Batman. You never know what's going to happen at Comic-Con. So we want to make sure that we see you there 27th to 28th. Before we finish out here tonight, do you have any social media that you want to plug to get out there to let the fans know how they can get in touch with you or stay connected with you to find out where you're going to be at future shows?
Well, I've definitely got my own Facebook, Jay Wolf, which all you got to do, you got to find this mask. You find that mask and you've got me on Facebook. But more importantly than that, you'll find me on all of the Next Level Pro Wrestling social media, from www.nextlevelprowrestling.com, the Next Level Pro Wrestling and 2-6 Wrestling Academy Facebook pages, as well as 2-6 Wrestling Academy and NLPW on YouTube. I'll be on all of those platforms.
Well, thank you very much. You just did my job for me.
Hey,
I appreciate you very much. Thank you, Jay. So follow us on all of our social media on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. We have it all. So make sure you follow us there. We have shows April 27th, 28th at Fayetteville Comic-Con. We have a show in May at Dunpal Fitness Center, and we're also going to be back in July 13th at Rayford National Guard Armory. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here at the Time to Talk with Trey Morgan for episode number 2 with Jay Wolf. Jay, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, man.
Good luck with your career here at Next Level Pro Wrestling. I know we're going to see a lot more of you here, and we got a lot of good things that I know is going to happen for you here.
Do you have dreams of becoming a professional wrestler today? Well, come check out the 2-6 Wrestling Academy here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. The best training you will ever receive across all of North Carolina to achieve your dreams here today. Follow us at www.nextlevelprowrestling.com, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at 2-6 Wrestling Academy and NLPW today.